Some good guys. I had promised to describe my experiment to you in the most concise manner, but as you teach me, conciseness is the enemy of precision. You will therefore excuse me if from time to time I cannot help but go into detail. You know, the devil is in the details. I will proceed to the account. If you do not mind, I will use the present tense, in my opinion the most suitable to give evidence to the descriptions. It's a bad June evening. June is one of the most beautiful months, but not this one. It sucks. There's a dark thunderstorm in the air, and the wind is rising as we leave the gate of Villa Kellerman together. The girl runs to her gray Uno. I make my way to my black Carrera, parked in the side street. I emphasize the Carrera. Only laymen call it the Porsche Carrera and consider it a feminine noun. I anticipate a banal objection. I know that automobile is a feminine noun, but originally it was not. I quote Marinetti, "Vehement god of a steel race, a roaring automobile is more beautiful than the victory of Samothrace," and so on. God, not goddess. There must be a reason why the Carrera has reached stellar prices among enthusiasts. We are talking about the king of the road, a cult object, the pinnacle of an automotive legend. Its lines have a sublime aesthetic appeal, with those 18-inch rims perfectly flush with the wheel arches, the very wide, clean tail with no aerodynamic frills, the car of absolute perfection. Therefore, it cannot be female. I come out right after her around 7 o'clock, an hour when I normally play bridge at the club, to make sure we are alone. I approach her on the deserted pavement, studying my gait. Today she is dressed unusually well, in a low-cost, well-cut dress, tight black bodice, high waistband and powder blue full skirt, black shoes with a slim medium heel. A winning choice because 12 heels are vulgar, the whole thing a bit 1950s. I catch up with her, not giving her time to be surprised. "Would you like to have a chat?" She jumps a little frightened, but immediately, turning around and recognizing me, she smiles.
Oh, it's you. Haven't you had enough talk for one night? We've done nothing but talk nonsense all the time.
Bullshit. It's called bullshit. But she is an assistant professor of classical philology and likes to use obsolete terms. "Not that kind of talk," I reply. She suddenly stares into my eyes, but there's nothing alarming in my gaze.
I would gladly do it, but I am a bit tired and would like to go home.
Too bad. I had something interesting to tell you, but well, another time. Bye, beautiful. I walk towards the car. Curiosity is female. Then there's the Carrera, and there's me. I count to 10. 1, 2, 3.
I should warn my mother, who is expecting me for dinner, but I forgot my mobile phone.
I show her mine with a smile. "Get in, come on." I open the door. She takes a seat next to me and crosses her legs, allowing a glimpse of her dark stockings with a stripe in the back. "Would you like to eat something?" At first, I had thought of inviting her to the Gatto Nero, my favorite restaurant. No cerebrality or improbable culinary philosophies, repetitive atmospheres and rituals, simple but perfect dishes bearers of primary sensations. But I immediately discarded the hypothesis. As a first invitation, it would have been suspect, and I certainly could not tell her it would be the only one. I choose a restaurant on the Po, in the Corso Moncalieri area, an interesting and fairly good place. I make her drink and laugh without mentioning what I have to tell her. She seems relaxed, carefree, even beautiful at times. She tells boring anecdotes about her starving career and asks me about myself, my friendships, my family. I answer her with catchphrases, cliches, banalities. From time to time, I light a cigarette and pour her a drink. I am a teetotaler and do not smoke. At one point, a small ragamuffin approaches us holding half-bloomed roses that look like they have been picked out of the rubbish.
A gypsy child. Poor thing, what ugly roses.
I hint at a smile, but it comes out badly as usual, so I give up. I opt for a stern tone. Look, you are an intelligent woman. Try to avoid cliches. She looks at me strangely and asks no questions, but it is clear that she has not understood. Perhaps it is her social background that prevents her from grasping the obvious, whereas to me it is all very clear. I have always counted among the most alarming symptoms of decadence the fact that I consider the assaults of gypsies in restaurants, window washers at traffic lights, non-EU citizens at the exit of shops, illegal parking in pay-car parks, etc., to be normal. By the way, swear to me one thing. If one day you see me reduced to doing such a thing, suppress me. I'm not joking. I keep a gun in my drawer under my shirts. You charge whoever you like. I spare no expense. You know how I feel about the instinct of self-preservation. There is no need to bother Kalergi. All that is needed is the reasoning with which every human being is endowed. When I see myself being treacherously attacked by one of those misfits, my first instinct is to punch him in the face. I tame the impulse just to avoid trouble with the law. Besides, given my physical size, a glance is usually enough. That then was just a child. In fact, as soon as I lay eyes on him, the little gypsy turns around and walks out of the place. She watches him leave and says, a little resentful,
Why did you look at him like that? You frightened him. He already has his own problems with those roses, poor kid. He won't be able to sell a single one.
That's not a good reason to annoy your neighbor.
But what do you know? Surely they must have forced him. Maybe he's not even the son of gypsies. Maybe he was kidnapped.
Look, let's change the subject, shall we? Disconcerted by my peremptory tone, she humors me. Shortly afterwards, the young boy returns. He holds down his bouquet of roses and stares at the floor, not finding the courage to approach the tables. I ignore him, but she, evidently drawn to existential squalor, cannot take her eyes off him.
They beat him up. Look, he has a bruise on his forehead. Someone outside beat him up and forced him back in.
I look at the brat. I look at her. It's normal. It's part of the order of things. I don't understand what she's surprised about. Anyway, I decide to humor her. I call out to the child with a wave of my hand, but he turns his back on me as if he was afraid of getting hit by me too. The little prick doesn't want to get any closer. I sigh, stand up, reach out to him, take his hand, put 100 in his palm, and take the whole bunch. He stands still for a moment, staring at me as if he can't understand. Looks at the 100 bill and looks at me, then closes his dirty fingers and runs out without even thanking me. I take the less shabby rose out of the bunch, returning the others to the rubbish from whence they came, place it in front of her and say, "Everything's fine. Now can we talk about something else?" She doesn't answer anything. She looks at me with wide eyes and the expression of someone who is losing her bearings. Once dinner is over, we leave the restaurant. I can't stand the stench any longer. Our clothes have become soaked in the raw smells of the restaurant. I propose a detoxifying walk along the riverside, knowing full well that she will not accept because it is starting to rain. In fact, she tells me,
Unfortunately, I didn't bring an umbrella. I didn't expect it to rain.
At this point, she expects an objection, an attempt to counter it. Instead, I humor her. "You're right, I'll walk you back to the car." This disconcerting move was not at all expected, but I cannot claim credit for it, as it is a quote. Fischer Spassky, 1972, 11th game, the horse returning to the starting house. This destabilizes the opponent and puts him in a position of inferiority. The implicit message here is, I didn't like you enough to take you to bed, which, for any woman, is deeply humiliating. In fact, she does not say a single word for the entire return journey. I take her back to Michael's villa and sportingly extend my hand to her. Thank you for a lovely evening. I see her feverishly searching for a foothold.
All right, another time.
For what?
That thing you wanted to tell me, don't you remember?
Ah, yes, sorry. I was just about to tell you about it when it started raining.
I live too far away. Otherwise, you could have come for coffee at my place.
She lies shamelessly. I know where she lives. It's not that it's far. It's that she's ashamed to live in a condominium apartment on Via Vanquilia. I point to the hill behind the Gran Madre. I live a stone's throw away.
Magnificent area.
Yes, not bad. Shall we go? She smiles shyly.
Decent girls do not go up to strangers' houses at this time of night.
But I am not a stranger. And above all, you are not a decent girl. Said and done, I take her to my house. I live in a penthouse on the 5th floor of a period building on Via Villa della Regina, but I purposely avoid the lift. I precede her up the antique staircase, caressing the briar handrail of the wrought iron banister. The briar is smooth and warm to the touch, like silk, a magnificent sensation, don't you think? This is also why I like to use the stairs. The old buildings in Turin have low steps, comfortable to climb, almost always in pietra serena, a gray sandstone of varying grain size that I much prefer to marble. I open the security door and point to the black leather sofa. Have a seat. She looks around dreamily.
You have a beautiful house.
I have a good interior decorator. He suggested this mixture of antique and modern furniture. Besides, I pay him a fortune. The Persian carpets are authentic, the paintings too. Casorati, Menzio, Follini, Deliani. I even have a Jessie Boswell. I don't like them at all, but it seems that in my environment it is obligatory to have such things. I let her wander ecstatically among my paintings, go to the kitchen and come back with a bottle of Dom Perignon. Not exactly a memorable vintage, nothing like 1982, 1988, or 1990, but still a very dignified Oenethec rosé. In all probability the best pink champagne in the world.
Thank you. I don't want to drink any more.
But I do. I place 2 goblets on the ebony coffee table and sit down on the sofa. She also sits down, reaches for the goblet and brings it to her lips.
So,
She says, trying to act sassy and crossing her legs.
what was it you wanted to tell me?
I start making up an absurd story about mutual friends, the kind of nonsense that always appeals to the female soul. She laughs. I humor her circumspectly and continue to fill her glass. The chat goes on for about a quarter of an hour, and she relaxes completely. I realize that it might be more complicated than I expected, because from time to time I get a little distracted. But as I was telling you, in these months I have matured a fair amount of self-control. Suddenly I feel the moment has come. I reach out my hands and grab her wrists. She squirms like a snake, but I squeeze her wrists tighter and drag her onto the couch beneath me. I cover her with my body and make her feel my sex on hers. She looks at me motionless, not understanding.
What are you doing?
She asks me, as if it were not clear. Tell the truth, you couldn't wait to get banged by me. It's your lucky day. I'm offering you an ironclad alibi. I sink my thumbs into her wrists.
Let go, you're hurting me.
Shut up.
What do you want from me?
Screw you, sis. What else? She finally stops wriggling. very predictable. Eventually, I get up from the sofa and go straight to washing. As I tuck my shirt into my trousers and retie my tied double Windsor, the British-style knot par excellence. Triangular, symmetrical, it works very well with French or well-opened collars. I feel satisfied. As I surmised, the woman is frigid, but she likes violence. Or maybe she likes me, I don't know. The main thing is that the rehearsal succeeded to perfection. I maintained control of the situation from the first to the last moment, while she lost it completely. She looked crazy or hysterical. She shouted, "Again!" I despise those who cannot distance themselves from carnality. A person worthy of the name cannot allow themselves to be totally dominated by matter. After all, woman has her heart under the sole of her shoe and eyes that have never seen the stars, as someone once said. When I re-enter the lounge, I feel a salutary nausea and can't wait for her to get out of the way. She is still there, motionless and wrecked like the wreck of a shipwreck. I turn my back to her, hoping the message is clear. I hear her slide off the sofa, dress, gather her things, and put on her coat. I turn, walk ahead of her to the door and block it against the jamb. She is almost ugly, stripped and undone, her dark circles deeply scarred. I lift her chin with 2 fingers and slip the now withered rose into her cleavage. This story will have no sequel. Therefore, in the interest of both of us, we did not see each other this evening. Is that clear? She does not answer. I open the door and let her go. I suddenly realize that it's time to make sense of the evening, so I lie down on the sofa, switch on my Marantz 1200B with tangential automatic turntable, and get ready to listen to my favorite music. I have recently discovered that the livid and desolate sound atmosphere is largely attributable to the very special instrumentation where the only woodwinds present are bassed horns and bassoons. The result is an opaque and ghostly timbre, weaving polyphonies against the pizzicati of the strings. Aesthetic perfection is achieved here. I am talking, of course, about Mozart's Requiem. Timing. Honey, we only have 20 minutes at our disposal, after which I will be forced to leave you here to arrive on time for the appointment. So if you have something to tell me, do it now. She hesitates. I continue to look at the clock in secret. I wait patiently for 10 minutes for her to decide to speak, but she prevaricates. Timing is not one of the merits I recognize in Antonia. She has the gift of always choosing the least opportune moment to talk to me about serious matters, or those that seem so to her. I am convinced that almost all of her problems arise from her lack of synthetic aptitude, from her tendency to reserve excessive attention to details, from the imbalance between the much time she gives to thought and the little she devotes to action. This attitude will not only hinder her in any kind of career, including the university one that she unrealistically embarked on, but risks compromising her own perception of reality. I already know that my life next to her will be animated by useless existential jolts, the result of the ghosts of her hyperactive mind that does not find adequate outlet in daily practice. And this brings me back to the question that I am often asked and that I ask myself: why her? Why not one of the many high-ranking girls who frequent our villa and do nothing to hide their availability towards me? The answer, in part, is obvious. None of those girls is there for me. If I were a worker and rode on a Fiat Panda, not one of them would give me a look. I know this is normal in my environment, but I want to decide what is normal for me. Many people consider her a social climber, but it is a myopic judgment. When I met her, she didn't know anything about my financial condition. I met her by chance at the university bookstore while I was looking for an art book for my mother, and she, who was consulting Greek books for her doctoral thesis, gave me a hand to find it. And there I only saw a nice red-haired girl, with long elegant legs, and nothing more, no love at first sight. Let's say that I felt a typically male interest in her. We had a chat at the bar opposite and I took her home, strictly on foot. The BMW would have betrayed me. Too late I realized that I was wearing my gold Rolex. I took it off at the bar, with the excuse of going to the bathroom. I never invited her to my house, and at the restaurant I always agreed to pay 50-50, as she wanted. When I went to pick her up, I used my mother's city car. At the beginning it was more of a curiosity. I wanted to understand what kind of person was that girl wearing masculine jackets over 50s full skirts, a mix that I find particularly erotic. It was not difficult, I confess, to get her to bed, which from my point of view did not prove in her favor. I didn't think about making her my life partner at all. I just liked hanging out with her. Then it happened that for a few weeks it was not possible to see each other. We lost contact. I didn't worry about it at all. I didn't even think about going back to look for her. But after a while I realized that I couldn't distract myself with the occasional girls I replaced her with. I was bored. A few weeks later I found the courage to call her. She answered in an icy and formal tone and hung up almost immediately. It was difficult to regain her trust. It took me over a month to get her to date me again. In the meantime, I cut off all relations with the other girls, because I knew that otherwise the story with Antonia would be over before it even started. All this has nothing to do with the great love of my father and my mother. Mostly the so-called great loves are a source of unnecessary suffering. I would not be able to love any woman in that way. Spending time suffering from an unhealthy relationship is a luxury that I cannot afford, not to mention that I consider it a truly miserable behavior. There are too many important things to do in life. After a few months, finally, I decided to bring Antonia to our house and I introduced her to my parents. She was pretty and elegant that day. She had worn a powder blue suit for the occasion that looked great on her. As soon as she saw the large wrought iron gate that gives access to the avenue of our hillside villa, she suddenly fell silent. In the whole afternoon she could have pronounced 10 words, replying in monosyllables to the pleasantries of my parents. At a certain point she turned to me and looked at me with hatred. It was clear that she couldn't wait to leave. I drove her home. During the journey she did not say a single word, remaining with her arms folded. Then, arriving in front of the modest door of her suburban building, she burst into tears and angrily told me that she never wanted to see me again. I hugged her very tightly in my arms, but she pushed me back with all her might, even kicking and punching me. When I managed to calm her down a bit, I explained the meaning of my behavior and tried to make her forgive me in some way. It wasn't easy. Pride is the dominant trait of Antonia's character. This episode gave me the certainty that I really wanted her, although I did not understand exactly why. I only knew that from another woman I would not be able to bear such rash behavior. I do not deny that my parents were rather perplexed by my choice, but I have never allowed them to interfere with my personal sphere. After all, they have nothing to complain about me. I have always done my best to be a good son and a support for the whole family. A few months later we officially got engaged. Antonia immediately informed me of her intention to continue working after the wedding, and I respect her choices. Her willingness to make it on her own inspires me tenderness in an environment like the university one, where if you don't have the right support you won't go anywhere. And she does not have any support. She is a girl of modest origins and too proud to submit to humiliating conditions. I managed to make her as serene as possible, at least guaranteeing her to be able to take care of her favorite activities in the future without the worry of having to support herself. But her soul is too restless and dissatisfied to be happy. I endure her recurring crises with resignation, without indulging in any psychoanalytic complacency. Antonia, to feel well, would need a systematic exercise of rational simplification, and I probably would be the right person for this, if I had only her to thank. Unfortunately, this is not the case. My father is close to retirement, and there are several urgencies to face. Our factory of fabrics for car upholstery, like the whole textile sector in the Biala area, is heavily affected by the crisis in the Fiat industry. I work until 9 in the evening, and often after dinner I take stock of the situation with my father, so I don't have much time left for Antonia. But it is also for her that I do it, to guarantee her a future that lives up to her expectations. If she understood it, she would avoid creating unnecessary problems to me. Today, for example, despite knowing that I have to meet the accountant at 6 to try to resolve an embarrassing problem of tax arrears, she insisted on seeing me at all costs. I made an appointment for 4:30 in Piazza San Carlo, at our usual bar. My mind is already at the accountant's when I enter the place and find her sitting at a table, pouring herself some tea. As soon as she sees me, she smiles and holds out her hand to me. I bend down to kiss her cheek and sit down. I order a coffee. I try to joke. Anyway, whatever it is, we'll have plenty of time to talk about it tonight at my house, in a much more intimate atmosphere. I touch her thigh under the table, running my fingers along the black line of the sock. I feel her shiver.
That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about, Michael. We won't be able to see each other for a few days.
Why?
My mother is not feeling well, and in the evening I would prefer to stay at home to keep her company.
What's wrong with Mom?
Nothing serious, do not worry. It's just that the flu out of season leaves bad aftermath. She has a terrible cough and feels very weak.
Say hello to her for me, and if there is any problem, call me. I know several specialists. She is silent for a few seconds. Something wrong, Antonia?
Nothing. I'm just a little shaken because of a bad story that happened to a friend of mine.
One I know.
No, she's a college colleague of mine.
What happened to her?
She was raped by a friend.
I burst out laughing. Raped?
I don't understand what you find to laugh about.
Sorry, love, but if she herself says he was a friend, it is evident that she was not raped.
More than anything else, it is evident that he was not a friend.
And it is equally evident that she knew it. Aren't you hot in that turtleneck sweater?
No, on the contrary, I'm cold.
Are you sure you're okay? I touch her forehead. I think you have some lines of fever. Maybe you got the flu too.
I'm fine, don't worry. Why do you say she knew?
Where did it happen?
At his house.
Then you see I'm right. It's not a hooligan who treacherously attacked her. She agreed to go to his house.
Sure, for a drink.
Mistake. To have a drink, you go to the bar.
But he forced her.
Her cheeks are mottled with red. Almost certainly she has caught the flu, even if she says no. I shouldn't make her shake like that. I look at my watch and shrug. All right, love, let's give Brutus what is Brutus's.
Are you kidding me?
I mean, let's give the brute his share of responsibility. But if you don't mind, your friend is jointly responsible for what happened to her, and I do not exclude that in some way she caused it. Gender equality implies a woman's ability to assume her responsibilities. Otherwise, she is still a minor and in need of protection, regardless of age and sex.
What do you mean?
I mean that your friend acted very lightly. And then, if it was violence, why doesn't she report the rapist? Antonia is silent. Anyway, love, I don't see why the case of a friend of yours should involve you so much.
Because such a thing can happen to everyone.
This really no. A girl with her head on her neck does not put herself in certain situations. Anyway, to be concrete, the important thing is to limit the damage. I hope your friend has taken her precautions to avoid an unwanted pregnancy.
Of course she took them.
And that the raping friend was healthy. You know, you risk AIDS with certain levies.
He's not a frivolous type.
And maybe he's handsome too.
Yes, he is.
I am increasingly convinced that your friend does not mind the experience. Anyway, at this point, I don't see the problem.
My friend is engaged.
In his case, she should keep her boyfriend in the dark about it. If he's jealous and violent, your friend takes some serious risk.
I don't think he is.
Maybe, but in any case their relationship is bound to suffer. I am neither jealous nor possessive, you know. I admit I can make mistakes, and I admit that others can make mistakes too. But no matter how much I try to be rational and tolerant, such a thing would not please me at all. In fact, to be honest, I don't know how I would react. Therefore, you better keep quiet.
I better.
She better.
The fact is that she feels deeply humiliated. She can no longer have respect for herself, and she can no longer be touched by any man.
I smile, give her a kiss on the forehead and get up. Well, honey, this is really her business. Now I'm sorry, I'm late at the accountant. talk to you tonight? Say hello to Mom, and if you need anything, please. I mentioned the gesture of calling. I pat her face and run to pay the bill for both of us. Only later, while driving through city traffic, I realize that she has not responded to my greeting. But it is typical of Antonia to have these sudden bad moods, destined to pass like summer storms. I don't notice, also because, as I had expected, I am damn late.
Alternative therapies. Teen mode on. I hate your therapy. I hate being forced to let you read my personal stuff. I hate women's magazine bullshit. I hate fucking writers and directors who make their money off teenage mind jobs and all that crap. Shit, Rommel. Teen mode off. To please the analyst who has prescribed me the writing of a daily diary as a therapy, I am about to reduce my life to saccharine junk, gravure swill, pathetic bedside book for sentimental girls. Ideal subject for screenwriters of mediocre B-movies. Well, come on, Emmanuel. It's your turn. It's 7 in the evening on a Wednesday in June. Lying on the bed with the convalescent pan rolled up around me, I listen to my music and contemplate the handful of flies I find in my hand. This summer parenthesis is like a swamp of quicksand. I scan the opposite bank with water up to my ankles, but I don't know how to move. I'm afraid of sinking with every step. I studied like crazy to please her. I recovered on all fronts. I passed with flying colors, and the result is that now we haven't seen each other for weeks. It's just a matter of waiting for next fall, she said. In summary, I'm an asshole. The phone rings. I try not to notice. None of my folks answers. Teresa! Tonight I have to go out with some friends, including a certain Erica who for some time has been bombarding me with phone calls and calling me with gay nicknames like Mouse, Little Mouse, bullshit like that. She cripples my name with an idiotic diminutive, Manu. I hate diminutives, and then I like my name as it is. I have no desire to pick up the receiver and hear her voice.
Hi Manu, what are you doing?
I'm focused on an absolutely unpredictable guitar passage that is trying to give some meaning back to my life. I didn't know that the great Tim had such an amazing son. It was an incredible surprise for me to find out. I'm not afraid to go, but it goes so slow. The phone does not stop. I get up, determined to answer or break it. Hello. My tone sounds like fuck you.
Emmanuel,
30 seconds of silence.
you are here?
Hi, Antonia.
Are you busy tonight?
No, I have nothing special planned.
Would you like to go to the cinema with me? They are showing The Lion King at Lux.
Fantastic. When?
At the first show, but maybe you need to eat something.
Never mind, I don't eat. I never eat. I mean, not tonight. Where can we meet?
Under my house. All right.
Perfect. I swallow my tonsils, hang up, and dash into the hall. Then I go back to pick up my heart. Maybe I'm too scruffy. I take a look in the mirror. No, that's okay. I run to the door. I suddenly remember saucepan. I go back to my room. take him by the arm, and join my mother, who is watching television in the living room. The best defense is offense. You don't have to look at all this crap, Mom. It's trash. It hurts you. I'm going, bye. She turns questioningly.
Where are you going? To Gianluca's party?
Yes.
Wasn't it after dinner?
No, it's 7:30. They've changed the time. She's a little annoyed, poor Mom.
Couldn't you have warned me in time? I already had dinner prepared.
I lean down to give her a kiss. You are right, sorry.
And put the dog in the kennel.
Don't wait up for me. After dinner, we'll go to the pub and then to the disco. Please, don't look at that stupid stuff. Hi, don't worry about getting back. Max will drive me home. I hear her say something as I run away. I arrive early, but she is earlier than me. She is wearing a turquoise dress with a cream sweater and scarf around her neck, her red hair loose to her shoulders. She doesn't say or do anything when she sees me, as if it were normal to go out together in the evening, alone. I don't have time to be amazed. I immediately realize that something is wrong. She has livid dark circles, badly hidden by makeup. At least she hasn't slept. My instinct, which always helps me with her, suggests a fraternal attitude. I take her by the arm and we walk towards the car. Of course she drives. I don't have a driving license yet. I babble non-stop throughout the trip. We haven't seen each other in a while, and I have a lot of things to tell her. Silly everyday things that I can't wait to share with her. But she's concentrating on driving as if we were at a rally, and replies in monosyllables. It's clear she doesn't want to make conversation. I'm too happy to resent. All I know is that she wanted to see me again. The cinema is full of people. We sit in the last rows. I keep talking to myself for a quarter of an hour, then the lights go down and the show starts. The film is good, but my mind is on her as she stands there with her arms crossed and her eyes fixed on the screen. I'm beginning to seriously wonder why she wanted to see me, since she's acting as if I don't exist. At one point I turn to her with a questioning look. She's trembling a little, and her fingers are clenched together. Maybe she's ill. I take her hand and whisper to her what's wrong. She stops shaking and rests her head on my shoulder.
It's nothing. I'm fine.
I put my arm around her shoulders. I postpone everything until later, and I prepare to enjoy the most selfish bliss, embracing her in the enveloping darkness of a cinema, as in so many of my dreams. There's air conditioning, and her hands are cold. I take them between mine, rubbing them lightly and bringing them close to my mouth to warm them with my breath, like the ox and the donkey in the crib. Suddenly, she throws her head back and closes her eyes. I try hard against all evidence to interpret it as a friendly gesture. She whispers,
Asshole kid.
and brushes her lips against my neck. From that moment on, my memories become confused. I only remember the bitter smell of her hair and the very high temperature of her skin. Suddenly, as she lifts her right hand to stroke my hair, I see a purplish bruise on her wrist. I take her other hand, uncover her wrist, and see an equal sign. Her throat is also mottled with bruises. I abruptly move away from her. What does it mean? She doesn't answer. She wraps her scarf around her neck and pretends to concentrate on the movie. I enter an area of pneumatic vacuum in which I can no longer think of anything. The images from the film overlap in my mind without me being able to follow anything from the plot, distracted by the heavy beating of my heart. After a few minutes, I feel her head lean on my shoulder again, but this time I stay still. She looks for my hand. I turn to look at her. Her dark circles have turned purple. They're striking. My heart locks in a vice. I take her hand, whispering, "It's all right. What the fuck am I saying?" She has a coughing fit. She says it's the air conditioning. She takes some pills from her purse and swallows them. After a few minutes, or maybe a few hours, she says to me,
I need to talk to you.
We get up on the climax of the tear-jerking final scene, amidst the curses of the other spectators. It has started to rain, my legs are shaking. I pray to the God I don't believe in to give me strength. To this day, I don't know how The Lion King ends.
I love you. I'm afraid to love you.
She's been driving for an hour and can't decide to stop. She's dazed, defocused. At one point, we risk falling off an embankment. I realize that the car is skidding, and I manage to straighten the steering wheel just a moment before we roll over into the ditch below.
I was going to kill you.
She says numbly, as if she wasn't in the car as well. I try to cheer her up, but she repeats several times
I was going to kill you.
and finally adds,
I would never, never forgive myself.
Then she restarts and concentrates on driving. I see several signs with increasingly unknown names on them. The last one says Albugnano. I sense that we are no longer in the Turin area. We have ended up in another province. She arrives at a crossroads, puts down the arrow, even if there is no one there, turns around and takes a downhill path. The road has no way out. I gasp when I suddenly see the imposing skeleton of a Romanesque abbey in front of me. She doesn't seem surprised, perhaps because she doesn't notice anything. She parks in the abbey car park and applies the handbrake. A small, uncomfortable car parked at night in a deserted square in the rain, with frogs croaking. The situation is typical to the point of misery. I feel a moment of tremendous embarrassment. I turn to look at her. She continues to stare at the steering wheel as if expecting something from it. Finally, I find the courage to speak. What happened? I ask her. He doesn't answer. I insist. Does my brother know? She shakes her head.
No, I can't talk to him about it.
He's not listening to you, is he? He never wants to know inconvenient truths. She signs yes. Do you want to try and talk to me about it?
I cannot.
How can I help you if you don't tell me anything?
Try to figure it out for yourself if you can.
I try, but it's very hard. I swallow and pronounce that name. Frederic? She is silent. I have hit the mark. A series of increasingly realistic details go straight to the pit of my stomach. I see the whole scene. I'm really bad. He's a bastard. She wrings her hands in despair.
It's not him. He's not the problem.
A surge of anger comes over me. I fucking know.
You know what?
That you liked it. It is not so? She twitches all over, like an oyster when you splash it on lemon. She trembles, her teeth chatter. I take her hand again so as not to make her feel alone, even if it costs me a tremendous effort. I feel like crying and kicking something. I wish I was away from her so I could feel bad without having to pretend.
I can't. I can't anymore.
It's so obvious to me. Let a man touch you. She nods her head yes, but you can heal.
I don't think so.
She says, trembling all over. Of course you can. You see, I'm holding your hand. She seems to relax. She breathes deeper and almost stops shaking. She hints at a pale smile.
It is true. I don't feel disgust for you.
She turns to look at me. Suddenly the alarm siren goes off. No, Antonia. She stares at me with sudden anguish.
Why not?
Because I gave you my word, you know.
Emmanuel, I can't stand pitiful lies from you. Tell me the truth.
I tell her, I just can't do it, Antonia. You know I like you very much. I think I proved it to you, but after what happened, I just can't take it. I'm sorry, you make me...
Sick?
No, not at all.
So what?
You make me feel like alternative therapy.
In what sense?
Antonia, is it possible that you don't understand? You just want to know if you can do it at least with me. You are using me. Not the best first time, huh? She leans back against the backrest.
You are right. I'm sorry. I don't know how I could.
She rummages in her purse with trembling hands. I think she's looking for the keys, which are stuck in the dashboard. I turn them around without speaking, starting the engine. She raises her tear-streaked face.
Thanks for your attention. I was just looking for the handkerchief.
Sorry, I thought.
It doesn't matter. I'll take you home immediately.
She puts it into gear and starts off, but puts it into third instead of first, and the car leaps forward. The engine stalls with a hiccup. She starts again, wiping his eyes with the back of his trembling left hand. Her jaw is clenched, and she has been holding her breath for several minutes. I can't leave her alone in that abyss. My barriers suddenly collapse. I turn off the engine and blow her nose with my handkerchief. She trembles all over, resisting my touch. I gently hold her hand, which rejects mine, and I nod my head. Don't do that. Come on, let me try. Her stiff muscles relax. She starts breathing again. I wrap her in a hug. I start rocking her, and we don't talk anymore. We stay like this, doing nothing, for I don't know how long. The rain is falling with a uniform downpour, and the glass of the car is misted up. It's a beautiful moment despite everything. She is very shaken. I have the impression that she doesn't connect. She is still shivering, and not from the cold. Of the two, incredible to say, I'm the more lucid. Suddenly, she drops her forehead to my chest with the strange inertia of a rag doll. I take her head in my hands and stare into her eyes. What were those pills? Her gaze flickers to mine.
Which?
The ones you got at the cinema. They weren't for the cough, were they? She doesn't answer. I'm pissed off a lot. What is it? You designed an assisted suicide with the scenography of the Gothic cathedral in the rain.
Romanesque, and I could not imagine that it was raining.
Oh well, Romanesque, Gothic, with or without rain. And you want me as an accomplice? You're crazy. I'll take you to the hospital immediately. I don't have a driving license, but I can drive. Move away. I push her away abruptly and try to take her place, but she holds me back.
Don't worry. They were just a couple of harmless tranquilizers.
I squeeze her face in my hands and look at her very severely. Never do that again, okay? Never. She nods like a child caught out. I speak to her softly. Now relax. You are very tired. She nods again and rests her forehead on my shoulder.
I don't know. I don't know if...
Don't worry, I'll do everything. I'll do everything, yeah. A few weeks ago, nothing would have seemed more natural to me than making love to her in the grass, on the riverbank, immersed in the innocence of our foothill Arcadia. I wanted it badly. Now the situation has completely changed, not counting the sacred setting, with that imposing abbey looming menacingly over my paganism, and I don't know if I will live up to my promise. What I know for sure is that I have to try, and to do it, I have to recover some of that irony that made my relationship with her so special and adorable. I try to make the prosaic ritual that follows reassuring. I gently help her to get rid of her clothes. It's not easy for me to get by on my own in this situation. Only someone who has made love in a Fiat Uno and is over 6 feet tall can understand me. I think it could have been worse. A panda, for example. She observes my gestures between fascinated and dazed, and absolutely does not cooperate. In fact, she looks at me amazed when I recline the seat. It is as if this thing that she herself has provoked suddenly seems impossible to her. She looks like she's watching a strange movie. When I try to get rid of the pants, she has a new fit of tears and clings to me, stopping my hand. All right, I tell her, let's do it with jeans on, but I don't think it's gonna go very well. She laughs between sobs.
You're really stupid.
She wraps me around, repeating disconnected phrases.
Tell me nothing happened, please. I'm ashamed. I would like to die.
And other things like that. I answer her, don't be afraid. I'll do whatever you want. She stammers.
I don't want you two are doing it necessarily.
And if she gets the verbs wrong, it really means she's sick. Then I kiss her on the mouth, and I bring her hand to feel that no, it's not necessarily, and I don't give a shit about who's been there before, because now I'm here. I stroke her hair until she stops shaking and her breath catches the regular rhythm of the falling rain. Up to a certain point, instinct suggests to me what my inexperience doesn't allow me to know. Then suddenly I have a moment of panic. I fear the inevitable confrontation. I fear making a fool of myself. She notices it right away.
What's up?
She asks. Well, I've never done it, I reply simply. She strokes my face.
I know, but don't worry. It will be fine anyway.
I no longer think about anything. She closes her eyes, and her fever slowly increases. At a certain point, she calls me love but never pronounces my name. I don't even understand if she realizes she is with me. Then suddenly she whispers in my ear,
I want you.
and it's like an electric shock in the spine. The time has come. I have a moment of panic, then I spread my arms and let myself fall into the void. A flash of heat suddenly pushes me up. I see her down there on the edge of an incomprehensible terror. I no longer think of myself, and I couldn't either because I'm gone. I have disappeared in her. I am her. I know exactly what is happening to her. I know where to take her and how. A vortex sucks me in. I retrace my whole life and the scream of the light and 9 months of sweet nothingness. She can't get out of that apnea of madness. She stays clinging to me. She says, help me. The whirlpool swallows her while I get up. I lift myself off the ground. My sturdy wings carry me higher and higher. I see the Abbey Bell Tower below me, and I don't want to let her sink. I have to carry her with me. Then finally the takeoff, the flight, the vertigo, the tremendous beauty of her face. I count all the stars of the night as I land softly and give her what's left of myself. She opens her eyes full of tears.
You are very good.
She whispers. But I'm not very good. I'm nothing. I want to see her like this another 100, another 1,000 times. I'm 16. I can afford to start over right away. When we look at the clock, it is nearly 3 in the morning. I suddenly remember my mother. Everything seems unreal to me. Around 3:30, she leaves me in front of the gate of my house. Anxiety began to eat me up, and it doesn't stop until she asks me a question I've been waiting for an hour.
Would you like it if we see each other again?
I don't know what I tell her, but it must be very funny, because she bursts out laughing. In my haste, I forgot my house keys. I knock on Teresa's bedroom window. She doesn't sleep. She comes to open the door almost immediately. She looks at me reproachfully and tells me to go up the stairs quietly. I give her a kiss on the forehead and go up the steps 4 at a time.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Life can be wonderful. The wind inside. I'm not at all sure this therapy is doing me any good, doctor. Recalling the period after that night has more of an emetic than cathartic effect on me, a bit like someone walking on my stomach with hobnailed boots. If I have to do it, I can only do it by recounting it in the distant past in a vaguely literary style, to distance it as much as possible from me and feel less the pain it causes. Good thing I went to classical school. In the course of the days that followed, the spirituality of that night turned, who knows how, into a spasmodic physical need. Soon my supposed strength of mind, of which I was so proud, revealed all its insubstantiality. When I saw her again a few days later, one look was enough for me to realize that she felt the same way as I did. We were looking forward to being alone. She left first. I found an excuse and joined her. During the car journey, we said nothing. We skipped all foreplay. We only took off the bare essentials in frantic gestures, in an unreal silence. We were in a hurry, a terrible hurry to get to the end. We did it again and again, always with the same outcome. Then we stood looking at each other in silence, amazed and incredulous, like two sailors who had escaped a shipwreck. After that, we saw each other more and more often. I no longer made excuses to my parents. I would sneak out of the house, careful only not to let anyone guess who she was, and return with Teresa's complicity. The day passed in a continuous narcissus, a useless countdown of the minutes that separated me from her. The words of others floated muffled in the silence of my mind, pure sounds without meaning. I suffered resignedly my father's outbursts, listened indifferently to my mother's complaints. I was always smiling, like an idiot. It is happiness that has this effect. There is an inverse proportionality between intelligence and happiness, doctor. Psychiatrists and philosophers should look into it. My parents forced me to undergo a medical examination in fear that I was drugged. As the name of my drug was not written in the medical books, they concluded that I was healthy. Then they referred me to an analyst, the first of a long series, but after the first 2 times I refused to go back. As punishment, I was deprived of my freedom of movement. There followed a period when our recklessness bordered on madness. With the excuse of waiting for Michael's return, she came to me every afternoon. We would have been caught in flagrante delicto, who knows how many times had it not been for Teresa, who stood between me and the rest of my family like a faithful watchdog, even though she did not hide her total disapproval of the affair. When I heard her coughing in a strange way, or vacuuming for no reason in front of my room, I knew the moment had come to come out into the open with the most innocent of smiles. I have a very clear memory of those moments. Even now, the same electric shock runs down my spine when I recall our quickies in the bathroom, in the cellar, in the broom closet. That smell of rags and washing up liquid has retained for me a tremendous erotic charge, wherever we were surprised by a sudden hunger that was not for sex, or at least not only. It was a kind of languor that started from the bottom of the stomach and took away all strength, an intolerable need to be satisfied immediately and at any cost. It began with a sidelong glance followed by a hot lash in the kidneys. Then it was all a chase through the rooms until finally finding a secluded corner. Just a moment, but what a moment. It was almost always her wanting me, taking me. There was no foreplay. I didn't have to do anything. It was like being devoured by a mantis. I can still feel her breath in my hair, her lips on my neck, her hands in my trousers, the need to hurry, the pleasure that rose burning, dizzying, that warm, viscous sensation on my lower abdomen, my knees buckling, my back sliding against the wall as she gave me her hand to bite, because we didn't have to make noise. They could hear us. Sometimes they could even see us, but I wouldn't have cared. No, not at all. My current girlfriend, to whom I owe this cure, says that over time I have become quite a lover. Bullshit, doctor. I'd throw all my supposed amatory skills overboard in exchange for just one of those moments of elementary, raw, primitive sex. I was always feverish and had never felt better in my life. As for her, I don't know what she felt exactly, but I think she felt more or less the same as me, with one difference though. I think she feared me all the more she wanted me. It was a terrible mistake to underestimate this difference. For the moment, desire still prevailed in her, but the balance was precarious. Not me, I was not afraid. I let myself live with all my being. I was an albatross. I competed with the seagulls. I spread my wings. My wings were white, large and powerful. I plunged in free fall. I swooped and then skillfully climbed and soared towards the sun. I descended to touch the treetops. I felt the tickle of the leaves on my belly, the caress of the air on my body. I dived into the stars. I breathed the light. I breathed the night. I felt the wind outside, the wind inside. My divine recklessness would have suffered a severe blow if I could have foreseen that this would be the first and last time for me. I was completely inexperienced and could not imagine that with the others it would be any different. I actually sensed it, but I rejected the thought. I lied to myself. I told myself that sex would always, and in any case, be wonderful. I was wrong. Few experiences can be as mediocre and frustrating as sex with the wrong person. I take this opportunity to remind you, doctor, that this diary is covered by professional secrecy. Only once did I experience something equally intense, but that was dirty sex and it doesn't count. Diving into a sewer has more effect than swimming in a pool of clear water, that's obvious. But with Antonia, I never felt any dirty feeling. Nothing could have convinced me that it was a sin. How could something so beautiful be a sin? That delirium, if it had lasted much longer, would have driven us both to madness, which for me was not a problem, but for her it was. She had an engagement and a career to run. She was more and more frightened. It remained to be seen what would follow that first explosion of the senses, and I had no idea. Perhaps I would grow tired of her while remaining attached to her like a brother, or perhaps, who knows, I might become her steady lover. It was a surprise for me to discover that as the weeks went by, the need for sex slowly subsided, but my feeling did not diminish in either intensity or depth. I needed her, even if only to sit by her side, even if only to watch her work. If I did not hear from her for a day, I felt anxious and alarmed. Seeing her again gave me immense joy and equally immense relief, as if I had escaped danger each time. When I tried to give a name to that feeling, I found only one. I was forced to admit that I loved her. The day I realized this truth, I felt thunderstruck by the revelation. It was as if I had been invested with a priestly dignity. I had been granted the privilege of loving in earnest from the depths of my soul, and I felt it was a sacred thing. I spent the whole day sitting in the rows of a vineyard on a hill from which I dominated the entire valley without being seen. Tigam had understood in his own way the solemnity of the moment. He had rolled himself up in the grass and gone to sleep, trying not to bother me. I think I prayed to God in the only way I am able, which is to thank him from the bottom of my heart. When I finally got home, she was anxious. She found an excuse to be alone with me in the kitchen and asked me what had happened. I told her to stay calm, wished her a good night with a kiss on the forehead, and went to sleep, leaving her stunned but serene. I had become a treasure chest. I knew I had to have the utmost respect for it. I had never felt this way before. Usually at this point, my casual interlocutors all come to the same conclusion, that mine was not love but morbid attraction, sexual addiction, pathologically deviant behavior, and so on. They bring up the Oedipus complex and other such crap. I avoid contradicting them. It is useless anyway. They cannot understand. I myself, later on, no longer understood and denied the evidence. I now know with certainty that I was right. The attraction for her was a consequence and not a cause of my feelings. This awareness, as I said, has not prevented me from having physical relations with other women, but it has made them quite insignificant. I am currently indifferent to sex to the point of almost impotence. I also had rather vague physical sensations with her at the time when things were no longer going well between us. But having her in my arms was an immense thrill for me every time. I do not pretend to define love. I do not know what to call that chaos of contradictory emotions. I do not know what name to give to my desire to make her happy. I apologize to the professionals of the psyche, doctor, but I am afraid you must resign yourselves to the fact that every now and then one simply falls in love, and it is a waste of time to jack off trying to understand why. At the time, my instincts suggested that the way to make her happy was through sex, but not in the obvious sense that comes to mind for everyone. I hate always having to justify myself. What kind of karma is mine? I am always destined to be misunderstood. Nobody is willing to believe me even when I tell the truth. I have to justify all my statements as if they were nothing but excuses to justify aberrant behavior. It's a bit like having to continually do a maturity essay. Can the candidate thoroughly explain why? I will try one more time. After all, that's what we are here for, right? There was in her a depth of loneliness, of incurable sadness, a sense of guilt of which she was unaware, and of which I never understood the meaning. But it was not important to understand it, just as a rational understanding of things is generally not particularly important. The important thing was to feel it, to try to cure the evil. Observing her from the outside, seeing her move gaily and confidently, one might have thought she was really like that, as my brother believed. But I could see beyond her gestures, her crossed legs, her black garter belt, her provocative smile, her way of squinting while blowing up cigarette smoke. Certain silences, certain bewilderments, certain hardnesses, certain sudden sweetnesses, her effort to hide her pity for useless and despised beings, human wrecks, crushed spiders, mosquitoes, reptiles, that way of biting her lips, twisting a lock of hair around her finger. I saw a lonely child, unwanted, uncared for, insecure in front of the mirror that reflected her bony shoulders, her skinny legs. She had no idea what was going through my head while we were making love. If I had told her, I would have wounded her to death. That too skinny child needed caresses, but not the vulgar ones of the men who had used her to satisfy their lust for sex or power, nor the superficial ones of my brother. None of those characters were able to reach her. I knew by intuition, before I experienced it, of her coldness, her intellectual excitement without real abandon, the frightened child could only surrender to a mother's caresses. That is why, in the early days, I was an all-female sweetness to her. I anticipate another objection, that I had no respect for my brother and felt no remorse for him. This is absolutely true. No, I am not a monster, doctor. The fact is that, beyond all evidence, I was certain that she was destined for me, not for him. By an unforgivable mistake on the part of the demiurge, she had come into the world too soon. When the developments of the project had brought her into my vicinity, a trivial demographic misunderstanding had led everyone to believe that the predestined was my brother. He had nothing in common with Antonia. They were, quite simply, animals of two different species. I was happy, doctor, happy with perfect happiness, and so was she. Whatever we did, with or without sex, we were floating in an Edenic, pre-conscious zone of being in which we felt perfectly happy. Isn't that enough to prove that there was nothing wrong with our relationship? It is only natural that those who read statements like this take me for a fool. Obsessive fixation, right, doctor? But who can say what madness is? It is a fact that I did not know her. I recognized her. I was immediately overwhelmed by a wave of emotions that had nothing to do with the present. With time, memories began to resurface in my mind. There is no other way to explain the fact that I always knew, despite my inexperience, what her secret needs were. Nor does it explain the force of attraction that irresistibly drove her towards me, despite herself. I will try to clarify the concept with an example. That year it was the Football World Cup. Almost all evolved males, in such cases, regress to caveman status by obeying the atavistic call of the pack, and my brother was no exception. He had turned our living room into a camp, gathering couches and chairs in front of the TV, and forcing my mother, always indulgent towards male needs, to put up with the daily invasion of hordes of friends. In the evenings, my father also joined the company. It was funny to see him become a boy again and munch on peanuts and popcorn sitting next to Michael, arguing with him about the coach's choices. Sometimes even insults would fly. Being very much alike, in fact, they loved to disagree about everything. The girlfriends on duty also took part in this kind of general gathering, whose function in the context could be defined as follows: to keep quiet, to receive pats on the back when Italy scored, to prepare food for the tired cheering heroes. Only those of higher rank or with more obvious physical roundness enjoyed an implicit pass and sat among the men, ignoring the existence of the kitchen. Antonia was not among them. I knew she felt violated by the vulgarity of the situation, and it was indeed unbelievable that my brother relegated her to the rank of a subordinate, but she could not find the courage to rebel. She passively accepted her role, holed up in the kitchen with Teresa and her occasional companions, exchanging small talk with them that humiliated her culture and intelligence. From time to time, she would approach my brother to hand him a plate or a glass. Frederick's presence was a constant pain for her, always in the company of showy girls whom he displayed in public without paying any attention to them. She walked past him with a rustle of stockings. He ignored her too conspicuously, a sign that he was keeping an eye on her. Michael drew her to him for a moment, saying to the TV set, "Thank you, darling." I, sitting on the sofa at the back of the room, watched the scene with contempt. Sad fate to love a vile woman. If my brother were listening to me right now, I would like to tell him what I probably should have told him then. A woman, whereby woman, I mean a female human being endowed with intelligence and sensitivity, can forgive a man many things, even a betrayal. If she understands that the motive is strong, that you are in trouble, she may decide to come to your aid and pass over many things. But a woman will never forgive you for shutting her up, because you had to watch the game or listen to the news. There is no good reason to put a TV program before her. It is not like falling in love with someone else. The very moment you have silenced her to listen to the regional news, you have lost her love forever and deserve to be betrayed, which she will do sooner or later, generally falling in love with the first comer. Sometimes I would get up and go to the kitchen to help her. I would stand beside her peeling potatoes and slicing onions. The other girls would look at me in amazement, but would not dare say anything because they were in my house. Teresa shook her head, smiling. Antonia kept silent, and I knew she was deeply grateful. One evening, while we were alone in the kitchen and washing the dishes, we engaged in a curious dialogue. You don't like football?
Usually not, but the World Cup is something else. I like to watch it.
Women's tastes.
I am a woman.
Women watch the World Cup for the players, not for the football.
It is a stupid cliché.
I know, I said it on purpose.
Who do you root for?
For Italy, although I don't think it will repeat the exploit of '82.
Not for Holland?
No, why should I? My mother is Dutch, not me. She was a big Cruyff fan. Anyway, I wouldn't mind too much if Holland won.
It is already in the quarterfinals.
Too bad it has to face Brazil. I don't think it will make it.
Difficult to hazard predictions after England's elimination.
Speaking of England, how about that new kid from Manchester?
He is very good.
Good, huh?
It was a naive trick and I didn't fall for it.
Really?
You asked me because he looks a bit like you.
But you prefer dark-haired ones, don't you?
Yeah,
If you like them, why don't you go to the living room?
save the jokes.
I've got a better idea. There's a TV in my room. We can watch the World Cup there. What do you say?
Are you crazy?
Do you think anyone will miss us?
As for that, they do not even notice whether we are alive or dead.
Good. I'll get the apple pie and chocolate. You get the drinks. From that night on, we followed the World Cup like this, locked in my room, without anyone actually paying the slightest attention to our absence of 90 minutes plus extra time. We alternated the games with cartoons. I had obtained some video cassettes with old Walt Disney and Tex Avery shorts, and we had a lot of fun watching them. I knew she needed a big payback. While on screen, Maradona passed the ball to Wilcoyote, Batistuta dribbled Donald Duck, and Baggio won a fight with Duffy Duck. We made love in a way that has always been my favorite. I am not an expert in erotic positions, and I have no interest in this kind of thing. With other women, I am of a discouraging predictability. But with Antonia, it was different. Perhaps because sex with her had a metaphorical meaning. I liked to hold her without hardly moving, letting her do everything, listening to the music I loved on headphones, leaning against the back of the bed. In those moments, as I have already said, I was not thinking about myself. I was an antenna, all tuned into her, ready to perceive her every slightest physical reaction. I would whisper complicit phrases in her ear. I would tell her, look at yourself in the mirror. You are beautiful. Think if Frederic could see you now. You can think of him if you like. I know you like him. Don't be afraid, I won't be offended. And she would gradually lose herself in unconscious ecstasy. Every now and then I would feed her pieces of cake and chocolate. In this way I was forcing her to take those revenges that she was unable to give herself, immersing her in a well-being of all senses, consoling her, so to speak, at 360 degrees.
Countdown. School has started again, but Emmanuel has missed the first 3 weeks of lessons. He has just returned from a 2-month study holiday in Cambridge, where his parents have forced him to go to perfect his English, a language which, like many boys of his generation, he has learnt mainly from the lyrics of pop songs. He loves American music very much, and this has given his pronunciation a slightly Yankee accent that offends Mrs. Helena's hypersensitive ear. Hence the decision to send him to the most exclusive heart of England for a while. It was very difficult to overcome his resistance. He would not have wanted to leave my side even for a day, but at such junctures I forced myself to let the mother prevail over the woman, and so he left.
Stand by me. Stand by me.
The night before he greeted me with a very long hug, but I am no longer the age for romantic illusions, and I told him don't be a child, behave yourself, and call me as soon as you arrive. He called me almost every night, not without my mother's astonishment. His short, intense phone calls were a naive account of his days, his progress, his melancholies. I joked about his conquests, about a certain Charlotte, whose name recurred all too often in his speeches. He did not deny that he had broken a few hearts, but the very fact that he couldn't wait to tell me about it made me certain of his affection, which had been increased by the enforced distance.
Stand by me. Oh.
One evening, immediately after the initial pleasantries, he told me point blank.
I have a terrible crush
Then after a studied pause, he added,
for Shakespeare. We are studying the first Hamlet, the 1603 edition, you know. Read in the original language, it's mind-blowing.
To disguise the violent emotion, which had almost made my heart jump in my mouth, I complained about the last expression, reproaching him for having betrayed formal language for slang. I missed him. As soon as I heard of his return, I rushed to the villa. There is no one at home. I only see Teresa in the kitchen. I greet her and enter the living room. He is not there. I only see a guy sitting with his back to me on the sofa, a decidedly mod guy, dressed in a pale blue shirt, light-colored linen trousers, and camel-colored loafers. The nape of his neck shaved and his blonde hair cut with precision, parting slightly in the middle, according to the unmistakable style of English colleges. It's strange, Emmanuel hadn't told me he had invited one of his fellow students. I hesitate, not knowing what to do. I close the door behind me. He turns around. I remain breathless.
Hi, my love, I missed you so much.
He smiles and stands up. He is taller than me by a head. How is that possible? He comes towards me and hugs me. I remain motionless without reciprocating his embrace, embarrassed by the contact with the seductive stranger, whose chest exudes a refined scent of musk and vetiver. A confused welter of emotions tangles inside me and finally explodes in the most senseless of feelings, indignation. I push him away from me, offended to death. How could you? He looks at me in dismay.
How could I what?
Go and explain it. I sit on the sofa with trembling legs. I can't keep my gaze fixed on him. Deciphering the sense of resentment and desperate pain I feel, I finally realize how much I miss my funny little boy. Somehow he understands. He leans over me.
Hey, it's me again. I thought you liked me better like this, but it's okay. Wait for me, I'll be right back.
He walks away and returns a little later wearing the same old blue jeans that are now too short, worn-out trainers and his grandfather's checked shirt. He smiles and spreads his arms as if to say, "Here I am." I look at him, it's almost him. Anyway, he is quite funny. I smile through my tears, and as he hugs me, I realize a terrible truth. The countdown has begun.
What's with these? What are they? What did we? That made them. But you know, and I know. We do. I don't care.
Double fault. With a superb backhand demi-volley, Frederick secures the decisive point. A chorus of compliments rises to his address. Maurice shakes his head and abandons.
Whatever, guys, there's no match when Freddie is in such good shape.
The doubles begins, Emmanuel and Michael against Giorgio and Ricardo, while Mauricio acts as chair judge. It is a Saturday afternoon at the end of September. I am reading Dostoevsky's Humiliated and Offended and absent-mindedly follow the match, sitting on the bench with saucepan at my feet, nibbling on some imaginary flea. This novel disturbs me deeply, causes me a strange heartbeat, sounds like a sinister premonition. That woman is me. This can't go on, I have to stop. I know I have to at all costs, but every day I come back for it. I didn't think I could desire someone so intensely and absolutely. My God, I am climbing the ladder in reverse. I don't know why I delude him and delude myself. He takes our relationship seriously, but it's madness just thinking about it. Every now and then I imagine the scene. Me in my 50s in menopause, obsessed with wrinkles, next to a gorgeous 35-year-old young man desired by all women, ravaged by jealousy, ridiculous to the point of humiliation. I could only run for the hills. Yet when I mirror myself in his enchanting illusion, I see myself as beautiful, timeless, a sliver of eternity. It will be so hard. I am working on myself. Sooner or later I will make it. I have to make it, because otherwise I will lose him forever. I have been thrown into a paradox. To have him by my side, I have to lose him. But in trying to get away from him, I'm ending up completely off the road. I don't know where I'm going. I'm driving blindly at 100 miles per hour with tampered brakes. I have a good chance of crashing into a wall. This novel is terrible. I don't think I will be able to finish it. Frederick leaves the camp. My eyes, without lifting from the pages of the book, catch his strong contrasts. The elastic and light step, the muscular legs, the tanned body in white t-shirt and shorts, the black of the exotic eyes, eyelashes and hair, the whiteness of his smile, the bright color of his lips. I know, without needing to look, that he is approaching me. Saucepan has a dull growl. He doesn't like Frederick. I pat him on the head. I have realized day after day, with amazement, that our humiliating experience, instead of pushing us apart, has bound us together in a strange way, and I am not just talking about myself. Often, more often than he would like, his gaze stares at me with a distracted attention, as contradictory as everything in him. It expresses neither superiority nor contempt, but a kind of distant perplexity. For my part, I believe I felt for him, from the first moment, a blind, primitive, disinterested transport, without hope or resentment. It would be unthinkable for me to share my life with Frederick. I sense in him a bottomless darkness, a potential for devastation that strikes terror in me. For no reason in the world would I want to be his woman. Yet I would not know how to say no to him if he needed me, even if it was to destroy me, just as one cannot say no to an earthquake or a tropical storm. To trivialize, a psychologist would say that he has a dominant personality compared to mine. But I think it is something more complex and at the same time simpler. Another black hole in my psyche, another thing I will have to work hard on to get to the bottom of who I am. From time to time, I am reminded of Emmanuel's prophecy, "You are not too different from me, you just haven't realized it yet." This story will have no sequel, Frederick had said that evening. Actually, a strange sort of sequel, or perhaps I should call it an appendix, there was, and just shortly after Emmanuel's departure for England. I had missed him a lot in those days. I had found myself fiercely jealous of the college girls, and this had alarmed me. Jealousy is not in my nature. I have always rejected it from me as a source of irrational suffering. For the first time since the beginning of that Dionysian narcosis, I had felt the need to awaken from my torpor and distance myself from him. He would soon get engaged, as was the order of things, and I, as his sister-in-law, would have to endure the daily presence of a girl at his side. The thing, at the time, seemed so inconceivable to me that one evening I told Michael that I preferred to renounce marriage. He remained speechless. He did not even ask me why. He simply took my hand and told me to think it over. The wrinkle that was drawn on his forehead expressed his state of mind. He asked me if there was someone else. I told him no. In fact, there was no one else in the dimension to which he belonged. He gave me a kiss and told me to sleep on it. The next morning, the ghosts of my mind had vanished, but the seriousness with which I had formulated the insane intention of getting rid of the only fixed point in my life made me realize that I had to start detaching myself from Emmanuel right away. One afternoon, after a swim in the pool, Frederick and I had found ourselves alone in the shower room. The others had just left. All day long, I had seen him gloomy and distracted. He had played badly and lost a couple of games against opponents far inferior to him. Now he sat by the window and looked out. "Aren't you taking a shower?" I asked him.
You shower first.
He replied without looking at me. When, dressed and with wet hair, I came out of the cabin, I saw him still motionless in the same position. The musculature of his body, under the grazing light of the sunset filtering through the window, was smooth, sculpted, impressive. I approached him. "Is something wrong?" I asked.
My mother has 6 months left to live.
"Freddie, I'm so sorry." I put my hand on his shoulder. "You should cry, let it out somehow."
I don't know how to cry.
There was another way to vent. I placed myself in front of him. The black velvet of his eyes caressed my breasts. Oh, to be beautiful. I lowered the straps, the silk dress slipped to my feet. The next week, he went on a cruise with an Australian model. I realized I had squandered something, but this time I didn't waste time feeling useless emotions like shame or remorse. It had just happened. He, as I had predicted, had the ability to make me forget everything for a few minutes, leaving me with the salutary devastation of a tornado, an absolute emotional desert, which was exactly what I needed at that moment. Frederick has come off the pitch and is heading towards me. He sits on the bench beside me and takes off his sweatband, shaking back his black hair. He pulls a towel out of his gym bag and runs it over his face and chest. His male smell, mixed with the bitter fragrance of his aftershave, reaches me, a smell I remember well. Then he leans back to follow the game. From this position, no one can hear us, but there is still a long silence between us.
Bravo, Emmanuel.
It is Michael's voice. I turn my head to look.
30-15.
Maurizio chimes in.
The kid plays well.
Comments Frederick.
He has a typical left-handed serve, powerful with a nice effect. The left-handed player naturally serves from the left with a high, tight spin on the opponent's backhand and an unfailing arched banana trajectory. The ball ends up on a right-hander's backhand, displacing him and forcing him to face the opponent's winner from the usually weaker defensive side. A right-hander doesn't make such mirror image trajectories even after hours and hours of practice.
Interesting.
I had underestimated him. Lefties are special, they usually develop divergent thinking.
He's actually a special person, that kid.
Do you like him?
Very much, I answer, turning a page. Pan growls softly.
This dog cannot stand me, who knows why.
Yeah, who knows?
He's a horrible animal and he looks dumb too. Why doesn't he get himself a proper dog? I could see him with a greyhound.
I lift my eyes from the book and look at him expressionlessly.
Afghan.
He points out. I lower my eyes and resume reading. He continues with that characteristic atonal and subdued timbre of his voice.
Personally, I would propose an oyster. The most common colors among Afghan greyhounds are golden blonde, cream or fawn with a dark mask and black, but there are also tiger varieties. The rarest and most prized, however, are the oyster without a mask with a silver-gray rump, white coat and ears in shades ranging from ivory to hazel. Canine excellence in short.
I refrain from commenting. He wipes the handle of his racket.
What's going on between you two?
Does it show that much?
I can see it.
It will pass.
Be careful with it.
I suddenly close the book, staring at his profile. I beg your pardon?
Nothing, just like that. It's a friend's advice.
I've already had a few samplings of your friendship.
30 evens.
I didn't want to. I don't know what I wanted. I don't know why I did it, I don't even know if I like you.
I can see that he is trying to be sincere, and this is costing him effort and embarrassment. As usual, attention to his suffering and discomfort overrides my pride. Let's think no more about it, I say, placing a hand on his in a friendly manner. Pan begins to growl again. Frederick turns to look at me with a tired smile.
If you want, I can try to make it up to you.
I stare into his eyes with all the seriousness of which I am capable. No way, Freddy. It's water under the bridge.
Because he is here now?
30-40.
Michael's voice can be heard, contrite.
What's the matter with you, Emmanuel? That's the third ball you've sent into the net.
I turn my gaze towards the players, but immediately avert it. From Michael's half-court, a silent, fierce blue flash reaches me. Frederick lowers his eyes to his racket. The game begins again. I don't know why I feel the need to justify myself to him. Sooner or later I will get over it, I told you. But for now I can't help it. He frowns slightly in an effort to understand. Then he says with a strange seriousness,
You are sitting on a bomb, little sister. The harm I have done to you is not even comparable to what he can do to you.
In what sense, sorry?
In the sense that between you and me the match is on equal terms. A man against a woman. With him you are a loser from the start.
Why against?
Because it's always against.
And why am I a loser?
Do I have to tell you? It's so obvious.
Because he's 15 years younger than me.
And also because of something else.
But shouldn't it be the other way around? He laughs, shaking his head.
You are completely crazy.
He absent-mindedly observes a small crack in the handle of the racket and resumes.
You and I can be friends if we want. You and he never can. He can blow you up. In 1,000 little pieces, you know? But I mean, it's your life.
Are you trying to make me think you want to be my friend?
I still don't know what I want from you. It's amazing how you give yourself away. You excite and disgust me, little sister.
He smiles, yawns, stretches slightly like a lazy cat, and leans heavily against the backrest, letting his arm brush against mine. I begin to get to know him, and I know that these are all symptoms of malaise. How is your mother? I ask him.
She weighs 39 kilos.
I'm sorry, Freddy. Try not to put yourself down. If you can.
My father got involved with a 20-year-old. I don't live with him anymore. I moved to the penthouse on the hill. Are you coming over tonight?
Double fault.
Michael throws the racket on the ground, impatient.
What the fuck is wrong with you, Emmanuel? You're playing like a dog. We were ahead. Now we've given them 2 breaks.
You're right. I'm not really in the mood. You'd better look for another partner.
Emmanuel takes off the sash from his blonde hair and runs lightly to the edge of the court, giving Frederick a disarming smile.
Would you like to take my place? On the court, I mean.
All right.
Michael, pleased with his new companion, does not protest. The game resumes. Emmanuel sits at my side, caresses Saucepan, who has immediately stood up to cheer him on, and starts vigorously rubbing the handle of his racket with a towel. Without speaking, there is a thunderstorm. The dull rumble of thunder can be heard. I break the silence. Up to a certain point you were playing well. Then what happened? He continues methodically tidying up his things. Are you angry? He ignores my question.
I'm going to take a shower.
He walks away without adding anything else, followed by his dog. The information is formulated in an unequivocal imperative tone. I cannot help but obey. I wait a few minutes, then, taking advantage of a backhand that has gone out of bounds, I tell Michael that I am cold and that I prefer to go back inside. He looks at me a little puzzled, dripping with sweat, and tells me that he will join me in half an hour. Frederick intervenes.
Half an hour is not enough. If I lose, I want a rematch.
Michael concedes it. Frederick tests the strings of the racket, smiling while I walk away with rapid steps. The shower room is on the ground floor, in a rather isolated wing of the villa. As I enter, I am struck by the usual scent of moss and chlorine. Under the high vaults of the ceiling, the echo of my footsteps alternates with the rhythmic dripping of a badly closed tap. Emmanuel. He doesn't answer me. I suddenly find him behind me, so that my heart leaps into my throat. I turn around. You scared me, I tell him, smiling. He calmly closes the door and rests his shoulders on it without speaking, remaining with his arms crossed. He looks at me for a long time from head to toe.
You have a bruise on your shoulder. Did you fall down the stairs?
No, why?
And one on your neck. You're wearing foundation, but it shows.
It must have happened when I hit the edge of the door. The timbre of his voice suddenly drops, becoming almost threatening.
Don't lie.
I don't know what to answer. He resumes.
How many times has this happened in my absence?
I try to attack to defend myself. Don't use that tone with me, little boy. I'm not your girlfriend. It is not to you that I am accountable. I get no reply. More and more clumsy statements come out of my mouth. I am your brother's woman, in case you don't remember. I am talking incredible nonsense, offensive to his and my intelligence, as well as to Michael. He continues to stare at me as if he does not recognize me, while his chest rises and falls in a slow, deep breath.
How many times?
He repeats. Suddenly, the sense of revenge for my past and future jealousy dictates a fierce whiplash, which I deliver in an indifferent tone. 1 to 10. I don't have a good memory for such things.
And maybe right here.
That's enough, I cut impatiently short. I can't stand this third degree any longer. Let me go. I move to leave, but he stops me on the threshold. Let me go, I repeat, but he remains with his back against the door, blocking my exit. I feel nervous, irritated, and even a little scared. Finally, I snap. Yes, right here on this floor. Now that you know, do you feel better? I try to push him away with one arm to open the door. Suddenly, he grabs my arm and throws me to the floor, with a force I would never have suspected in him. Have you gone mad? I ask him in amazement. Without saying a word, he comes on top of me, places a folded towel under the nape of my neck, and spreads my legs. I close my eyes. The shower has been going on for a quarter of an hour when I decide to pull back the curtain. Emmanuel turns his back to me, his forehead and elbows resting on the tiled wall, clutching his head in his hands, while his shoulders contract in a convulsive, irregular sob.
Go away, Antonia.
I close the curtain and leave the room, confusingly realizing that I have caused an irreparable disaster. I have only one thought: how to avoid the perfect catastrophe. Now he does not want to see me, but I will look for him. I will find him wherever he is hiding. I will ask his forgiveness. I will accept any conditions. I wait for evening to fall and go looking for him. It is 7:30 when I finally spot his scooter leaning against a tree on the riverbank. The sky has cleared a little, but there remains in the air, like a prelude to a storm, a strange electric charge. I turn towards the usual clearing and suddenly see him sitting on the grassy bank, knees bent, intent on throwing stones into the stream. Saucepan is lying with his snout in his lap. Emmanuel notices my arrival, but does not turn around or interrupt the mechanical repetitiveness of his gestures. The dog does not recognize me. He launches himself at me, barking, showing his teeth and raising a crest of gray hair on his neck. I call him. He immediately lowers his ears, approaches me, almost crawling and wagging his tail. Emmanuel says and does absolutely nothing. I stand by his side without speaking. He picks up another stone and throws it far away. He watches it fall into the water, listening to the thud.
Get out of my way.
I sit down next to him as if I hadn't heard. I leave immediately. Suddenly he stops throwing stones into the stream and crosses his arms over his knees.
The herons have made a nest in the middle of the reeds.
Where?
Over there.
He points to a motionless gray bird in the middle of a shoal. He is beautiful. A distant thunderclap can be heard.
I think it's going to rain.
I think so too. I pull a blade of grass from his hair.
Don't touch me, thank you. Soon the seagulls come. After sunset, they always gather on that little island. There are also some cormorants.
It's a good sign if there are cormorants. It means the river is not so polluted. He picks up a piece of plastic detached from the moped frame and shakes his head.
I guess it won't fit again.
Darkness is falling in the stubborn song of the crickets.
Those butterflies fly too close to the lamppost. They will burn their wings.
Emmanuel, please, stop. He falls silent, turning the piece of plastic over in his hands. Then he says,
How do you do it?
How do I do what?
Don't you ever get confused?
No, each of you occupies a place of your own in my heart.
What a hospitable heart.
He raises his eyes, two cold mountain lakes filled with a deadly calm.
It is over, Antonia.
A sense of despair grips my stomach so hard that I fold in two. Please, no, not now. I put my dignity and pride under the heels of my shoes. Give me some time, please. I can't do it now, I still need you.
One would not have said it.
How can I explain the truth to you?
I don't know. Try. Good luck.
I hardly utter words I never wanted to say to him. Emmanuel, I didn't think I was so important to you. I catch a moment of astonishment in him. He looks up to stare at the river, which he can barely make out by now. He throws another stone into the water.
I don't know what else I should have done to make you understand.
How could I think I was important to you? Try to reason. I am 30 years old and a rather average woman. You are beautiful and very young. Our story was destined to end very soon anyway. We both knew that. I have to find a way to. I hesitate.
To what?
To get some distance from you before it's too late.
Too late how?
It's a humiliating confession. It's costing me a terrible effort. Before I really fall in love with you, I would suffer to death. He shakes his head with a sour half-smile.
Really fall in love with you, yeah?
I cannot reply.
Antonia,
He resumes coldly.
you could have avoided that whole scene at the Abbey and told me straight away that you liked being banged by Frederick. I would have understood and left you alone immediately.
You don't believe me, do you?
No, I actually don't believe you.
It's not what you think. I don't regret a single moment of those I spent with you. They were the most beautiful moments of my life.
It doesn't matter anymore.
These words sound like my final death sentence. Emmanuel remains silent for a while, then finally speaks.
How much time do you want?
As much as you want.
Just one night. This one night.
The whole night?
Yes. But I warn you, no sex. I have a fever.
I accept unconditionally. The rush of happiness I feel at the thought of spending the night with him stuns me. I hope to die before dawn. That would be the solution to everything. I am free-falling, and the sense of vertigo is so strong that I feel relief at the thought of crashing soon. Suddenly, I remember that he is only 16. Your parents will worry when they don't see you come back.
I have my mobile phone. I call them and make up an excuse.
And where will we spend the night?
In the old barn.
I would like to say something important, but my brain is full of jam. The only thing I can think of is nonsense, which I utter in a solemn tone. Mosquitoes will devour us. He laughs despite himself. It is now dark, but he notices that I am crying. He turns and embraces me as a friend, with detachment. I feel him warm, shivering with fever. I roll on top of him and cover every inch of his body with chaste kisses. He remains motionless with his eyes closed and his arms outstretched, as if crucified in the grass, without hinting at the slightest reaction. I rest my head on his chest, listening to the accelerated beat of his heart. Emmanuel, everything will be fine, I swear. He does not answer. He mechanically bends an arm over my neck. I try to joke with tears in my eyes. Do you want to suffocate me? He loosens his grip, but I hold his hand on my throat, because deep down, I hope it. Aren't we going to the barn?
Later.
The moths swirl around the lampposts, plummeting drunk with light. Overwhelmed by the paradox, I feel indescribable joy and infinite remorse.
Oh yeah. All night. Somebody's hiding, strong in my icebox. Somebody's told one, it's giving me chills. The south is closing my eyes. want you. I never could do that which might hurt you. Try and be cool. And I say, this way is a water side of wing for me to chase it for every day. It's a big cool.
Omnipotence. That night we slept like this, embracing like brother and sister. It didn't cost me any effort to repress my sexual instincts. They were literally zeroed. About 5 o'clock we got up and walked to our transports without saying a word. Antonia had a ghostly face in the dawn light, marked by deep dark circles, so much so that I was almost frightened. Don't worry, I told her mechanically, we'll see each other every day at my house. She burst into tears, nodded her head and gave me a desperate hug. She tried to kiss me, but I pulled my lips away and looked at her with mild reproach. Then I jumped on my scooter and went home. At school, I couldn't understand a single word of what the teachers were saying. My head was filled with a strange buzzing, like a wasp's nest in the middle of August. After lunch, I locked myself in my room and started listening to loud music. That accursed afternoon at the end of September, something had broken in me, perhaps the umbilical cord that kept me attached to life, and I wandered differently and incoherently like a drunk puppet. My relationship with her was the perfect synthesis of life's nonsense, a waltz in the fog, a horizontal flight in the dark without radar, blindly. The evil she had done to me was rotting inside me, and I couldn't forgive her. It was like a burn in the soul. It hurt like hell. But I endured in silence, waiting for the moment of revenge. I told Antonia that it was over, but it couldn't end like this. It was too shabby an epilogue, in which I had the role of the idiot, loser on all fronts. A minimum of redemption was due to my character, at least for the useless passion I had put into interpreting him. In retrospect, Doctor, I can tell you that I have radically changed my mind about that period. However terrible, it was still a way to feel alive. If I could go back, I would choose to suffer the pains of hell rather than face the senseless chaos that awaited me. Yet at the time, I was stupid enough to consider revenge more important. The fact is that you can't imagine how serious and irreparable certain mistakes can be before life has given you some memorable lessons. School had long since resumed, and I owed exclusively to her obstinacy the fact that I somehow managed to drag it forward. She was after me like a hound. The staging of our afternoons by the river had lost all attraction for me. I rarely went there, alone, or rather in the company of Saucepan. Mostly I stayed at home in my room, keeping the dog on my knees, and turning my back to her while I studied, to let her know in the clearest way that I no longer needed her. I rarely asked for her help, just enough to force her to stay in my room, apart from the fact that she wouldn't leave for any reason in the world. I was as necessary to her as the air she breathed. She would sit next to me for hours, immersed in reading her abstruse texts and preparing her university articles. I purposely kept the door open so as not to arouse Teresa and my family's suspicions, and also to scare her a little, as if there was nothing left to hide. It was nice to watch out of the corner of my eye how alarmed she was, even though she tried to hide it. Sometimes her hand would shake as she wrote in her notebook, probably without understanding a thing of what she was scribbling. But then I would close the books and the door, turn to look at her without saying anything, and the game would start again. Knowing that she loved me, even in her own strange way, gave me a huge advantage. It was obvious that she trusted me blindly, and this gave me absolute power over her. I had always been careful not to exercise it out of respect for her, but now the respect was gone to hell. So I took the plunge and began to overdo it. By now I knew her so well that I could predict all her physical reactions. I could provoke them, impose them on her, even impose the timing if I had to hurry. Like all intellectuals, she had no defense against her animality. Her attempts at rationalization were simply ridiculous. I had always known I was the strongest. I had her in my grasp. A sense of omnipotence had taken hold of me. I invented new games for her. I devised conventional signs to be sure to control her even in her absence. When we couldn't see each other, 3 rings of my cell phone at a certain time would warn her that I was thinking of her. I knew that she couldn't help but get in touch with me telepathically and feel the same sensations as me. Because my body was hers, I was able to transmit them to her even from a distance, wherever she was, whoever she was with. In this way, I was always with her day and night. Meanwhile, my disgust grew exponentially. The idea of mixing my physical secretions with those of someone else, even my brother, weighed on me more and more every day. I bombarded her with indiscreet questions while we made love. I wanted to know how many times she had done it, and when, and where, and how, and what she had felt. I wasn't satisfied with generic answers. I wanted to know every little detail of the foreplay, what position they had chosen, how long it had lasted exactly, how many orgasms she had had, how long and how intense, how much she had liked it on a scale of 1 to 10. And if she answered 3, I didn't believe it and got pissed off. And if she answered 9, I told her, "You're a slut." She was more and more scared. She didn't know how to calm my destructive madness. Sometimes she would burst into tears like a child, and then I would kiss her and reassure her. I would tell her, "Good, you have to be honest with me. Don't be afraid. You can trust me. You don't have to hide anything from me. Anything." And as I turned her soul inside out like a glove, I felt a cold, unrelenting nausea. I was constantly looking for ways to hurt her. It gave me a strange pleasure. I am not a sadist, and I remembered that I had loved her. I promised myself almost daily to restore a higher meaning to our relationship. But for the moment, the instinct to fully experiment my power prevailed in me. At this point, I must open a parenthesis, Doctor. What is commonly understood by love is a psychic pathology, a form of mental imbalance. If it were not so, it would not suddenly turn into its opposite. It would not transform from one day to the next into hatred, or worse, into indifference. Suddenly, you no longer care whether that person, who was previously your whole life, is alive or dead, and you don't even stop to ask yourself why. Like all unbalanced people, the lover is also terribly dangerous. A betrayed lover hates the person he loves, wishes him harm, can kill for love. I don't understand why this idiocy is exalted in literature, in songs, in art, takes up so much space on TV, in people's dreams and desires. I don't understand why kids are taught to defend themselves from alcohol, drugs, and not from love. The Greek philosophers, apart from Plato, knew it well. Flaubert knew it too, Tolstoy too. We don't know it anymore, and in my opinion, this is serious. I have the impression that today, instead of adults, there are decrepit children who play at life and pretend to be educators. Never trust an adult. Antonia was one of them. Woe betide anyone who trusts her. The last real adult I knew was my grandfather. Not that adolescents are better, but at least they have the mitigating factor of still evolving. I am fully aware that I behaved badly with her, Doctor, but I was really young, and I still hadn't understood many things. Antonia was starting to be afraid of me. At times she would wake up as if from a dream, tell me enough, tremble as if she were cold. She would start to leave, but then she would fall back into a sitting position as if stunned. She couldn't move away from me. She would rest her forehead on my shoulder as a sign of surrender, saying my name softly and asking me to please stop. Even now, remembering that whisper of hers sends shivers down my spine. She was too proud to ask me, but I knew she needed to be hugged. She felt that I was moving away from her, that I was only physically close to her. Her silent pleas for help gave me such a deep sense of laceration that for a moment I forgot all my resentment. I would wrap her in my sweater, put my dog in her arms and rock them both, whispering everything's okay, until she stopped trembling and fell asleep. I would stay awake and listen to the voices of nature, her regular breathing, the beating of my heart. Oh, if she had been a blind, deaf, and mute child, a poor idiot to be rocked like this forever. Now don't be surprised by what I tell you, Doctor. This is the purest and most intense of my memories, the only one I associate with the idea of eternal bliss. But suddenly an obsessive image would fall into my mind, always the same. Her lying beneath me on the blue tile floor with her eyes closed, imagining his black hair instead of mine, scratching at his muscular shoulders instead of my adolescent ones. Her letting herself be insulted, curt, and meanwhile repeating yes in a dizzying crescendo. So much so that in the end I had to press a towel over her mouth to stop her from screaming his name in orgasm. I could clearly feel the crash of my soul. I had always accepted Antonia's physicality as a given. Now it was like a spider, a disgusting black spider between us, and an uncontrollable urge drove me to crush it. I just had to find the way, the moment, the opportunity, and finally the opportunity came. Frederick was here yesterday, I told her one evening, without any connection with what we were doing in bed.
Why are you telling me?
Nothing like that. He was with a girl. She answered nothing. Very beautiful, I resumed. Long hair, tall, beautiful breasts. And then very young. She must have been more or less my age.
You weren't so sensitive to this kind of female charm once.
Maybe I don't, but he apparently does. And then, growing up we change. Nice coup, scored with elegance. The next day she refused to see me. I called her around 10 in the evening. She wasn't at home. The fierce jealousy I felt all night made me especially ruthless. The following afternoon, while I was preparing a school test with her, she affectionately put her arm around my waist and leaned on my shoulder, as she often did. She immediately backed away.
You have a strange scent.
Maybe. Last night I went out with a friend, and then I didn't take a shower. She said nothing. Don't count on me today. I added I have nagging back pain. If it wasn't understood, we didn't just go get ice cream. I closed the book and assumed a serious expression. I wanted to tell you about it, Antonia. It's the first time I've cheated on you, and it's only right that you know it. I've always been honest with you. She continued to be silent. I guess you want to know how it went. All in all, not bad, I would say. The best part was the foreplay. The rest was rather tiring. The young lady had some problems with frigidity. But overall, I was good. You can be proud of me. She said nothing. I closed the speech with a tone between bored and impatient. Well, what is this silence? Let's not make a drama out of it. In the end, all I did was put myself on the same level as you. A very violent slap almost knocked me off my chair. I straightened up in a daze. She looked at me for a long time from some remote distance, like someone who sees a loved one again after many years and finds it hard to recognize him. I wanted to say something, I wanted to explain, but she got up and went out. I ran into the hall. Teresa informed me that Miss Antonia had gone away without taking her purse. I heard the roar of his car in the garden, the tires squealing on the asphalt road. I went back to my room and leaned back on the bed. I was doing everything wrong, but she couldn't do without me. She would come back. At least to get back the purse. Antonia never came back. I must have wounded her to death.
Hit it.
The human psyche is strange, Doctor. So strange that I don't know if it's worth wasting time trying to decipher it. It doesn't help to avoid the tragic mistakes that we are bound to make in any case. At first I felt nothing. Neither pain nor regret, nothing at all. The sense of liberation prevailed over all. I felt like a balloon that had thrown ballast into the sea whose weight had now become intolerable. I was floating in the truest sense of the word. I was happy to exist, to warm up in the sun, to breathe the air, to walk the streets with my nose up, to look at the clouds free, alone, clean. I was experiencing again the sustainable lightness of being. After a few weeks, I began to feel a little too light, a balloon full of helium, full of emptiness. My afternoons became the apotheosis of nothingness. That naive serenity gave way to boredom. I began to feel transparent. They were projecting me onto a screen, and the film was boring to death. Then, I don't know how to express that feeling, the film started to get thinner. I spent the hours lying on my bed staring at the ceiling. I no longer took Saucepan to the river. When he complained, I opened the door for him and let him go out into the garden alone. One day, for no apparent reason, I started opening all the drawers in my room. I began to find pieces of memories. They slipped everywhere, between the pages of books, between the notes of a song, in the smell of the pillow, and filtered by the distance, they weren't so horrible anymore. On the contrary, they brought with them a kind of seductive pain. And the memory of pleasure, well, that was all too tangible. And here we are, Doctor. I had never come to terms with abstinence. It was different before. I had never known real sex. I missed it more every day. However, incredible to say, at first I didn't worry about it. I was still in the grip of my delusion of omnipotence, and I thought I could easily replace her. What was she after all? A mediocre 30-year-old, a bitch in heat with glasses and an intellectual air, a bluff. The males sniffed her willingness to mate and mistook it for charm. There wasn't much to regret. From this point of view, she was right. I was objectively too young. Our relationship would have ended soon anyway. Too bad for her if she was stupid enough to get involved. I ended up convinced that Antonia had been only a chapter in my life, however important, an experience, as they say. But now it was water under the bridge, and I had to look ahead. I had my whole life ahead of me, etc., etc. And so, from cliché to cliché, I managed to recover a sort of unsteady inner balance. Even though something inside continued to gnaw at me, and in my heart, I knew that this was not the case. The answer was too trivial, and trivial answers, unlike simple ones, are never true. But at that moment, I had no alternative. I had to believe it. That's how I got some sex with girls whose names I can't even remember. I was convinced that with those vulgar experiences I would silence my body, and then finally be able to dedicate myself to more serious things. I was literally overwhelmed by the surprise. During those sexual encounters, everything remained the same. The furniture remained furniture, the carpet remained a carpet, You could smell the wax just past, and that of deodorant from their armpits. They demanded condoms. With her, I never used them. They said, "Oh yes, come on again," as in a fourth-rate photo novel. I showed off my technique as best I could, but I was no longer very good. Indeed, not even good. In fact, I was barely passable, in fact, to be honest. I didn't give a shit what they felt, and I couldn't wait to finish. And then the unrecognizable sensation, which did not rise to the brain. No cosmic thrill, no delirium, no takeoff. The discovery of the mediocrity of sex between strangers came as a real shock to me. I stopped looking for those girls and began to spend the hours shut up in my room, recalling her in my thoughts. I have always harbored a secret contempt for masturbation, which I consider a poor substitute for real sex. Venting hormonal tensions in that way appears to me for what it is, a degrading and self-referential practice. I would like to clarify one thing beyond any doubt. Sex for me is a means of deep and intimate communication. Communicating with myself doesn't interest me. If I really have to, I prefer to write a diary. Yet at that moment it seemed to me the only alternative to the squalor of those casual relationships. Antonia dreamed. Antonia only imagined was 1,000 times more satisfying than those girls. I could close my eyes and delude myself that I was once again prey to one of her deadly ambushes in the closet. I could think that those hands were hers. I could dream again. Then I would leave my room and see her sitting in the living room, intent on chatting with my brother as if nothing had happened. She ostentatiously ignored me so as to arouse Michael's amazement, who one day asked her what I had done to her and why she didn't want to tutor me anymore. She replied that I didn't study enough and turned for a moment to look at me, throwing an ironic look at my dark circles. I went to Teresa's kitchen, who consoled me with the usual hot chocolate. I was sick. I swam in the aquarium with that strange mold on me, waiting for the drop of formalin poured by a pitiful hand. I was just waiting for a sign, and the sign came on a terrible afternoon at the end of October. I can't tell you this, Doctor. I can try to tell you everything, but not the horror. So you'll excuse me if my account is vague and approximate, but really, you can't expect this from me. I was in the room, lying on the bed, staring at the ceiling trying to imagine an alternative to my music, which I could no longer listen to. My brother looked at the door and said something like, "But you have nothing to study, no one to visit, the dog to take out. By the way, where is Saucepan? You shouldn't neglect him like that." I mumbled something back and refocused on my problem. Suddenly, I heard a yelp coming from the garden. As if awakened from a stroke of sleep, I looked on the bed. Saucepan wasn't there. How long have I not seen him? I rushed into the garden with my heart in my throat and saw him sitting on his hind legs in a strange position. A large Doberman was running away through a hole in the fence. I approached with trembling legs. His jugular was torn open by a deep bite. He was bleeding from his nose and mouth. He coughed and looked at me, wagging his tail as if to apologize. I immediately realized that there was nothing to be done. I completely lost track of time, of space, of my own identity. I was just a deep abyss of horror. I stayed close to him, stroking his head until the end. And in those 45 minutes, which I wouldn't even describe under threat of torture, my soul was torn apart beyond repair. I wrapped my dog's body in his new blanket of very soft fleece, a kind thought from my brother for my return from Cambridge. I took him on my moped to the clearing in the woods, and with makeshift tools, pieces of planks and splintered branches, I dug a deep hole. I covered the hole with leaves, so that the earth was not in direct contact with the body, and then I planted a rudimentary cross over it. I sat there all afternoon, numb with grief and remorse, shaking convulsively, not shedding a single tear. The sign had arrived. Now everything was finally clear. All I believed in was a child's dream, and that dream was over. A geological era, not a chapter in my life, had ended. I knew perfectly well that remorse would haunt me all my life and would be indelible, because it is impossible to forget that you have caused the terrible death of a creature you love deeply and trusts you. And it is useless for you psychologists to try to convince us of the opposite. It's like forgetting the child in the back seat of the car in August and finding him suffocated in atrocious hardships. How do you recover from such a thing? How the fuck do you do it, doctor? The truth is that the soul receives mortal wounds from which it never heals. You can only try to survive. I was terrified by the thought of the future. Everything that had represented my faith, my belief, my trust in good, my will to do good, had fallen apart. I had done evil. I had been capable of it. Not only had I knowingly hurt Antonia, but I had done horrible harm to a creature that I had saved, that I loved very much, and that I wanted to protect. What abominable irony of fate! What wicked god had played this awful joke on me? Whose laughingstock had I become? Who was I? I was only 16. I felt that already at 20 my psyche would have been devastated by this inner torment. I knew it was impossible not to think about it, to forget about it. Perhaps only with an electroshock or a lobotomy could I have succeeded. Perhaps only Antonia's presence by my side, for better or for worse, could have saved me at that moment. But she wasn't there, neither to console me nor to slap me. I would have accepted anything from her, even to share her with Frederick or anyone else, even to set aside sex and stay close to her like a brother. As long as she wrapped me in an embrace and stunned me with her, it's all right. Only once, a few days after Saucepan's death, did she approach me in the corridor on my way to my room and take my hand. I was too depressed even to feel my heart leap in my chest. I felt only a confused pain in my stomach.
I'm so sorry, Emmanuel,
She said.
I know how important he was to you, and I loved him too. Don't let the sadness get too deep. Get another one now.
I looked at her with distant pity. Another one, sure, she continued.
In any case, I will always be close to you. Never forget that.
I released my hand from hers and went alone to the river, where I stayed all afternoon beside my dog. It was cold. Autumn was now well advanced, and the grass was spotted with golden leaves that had fallen from the poplars. I wrapped myself up in my jacket and curled up on myself. I understood that all this was not accidental. I just had to make an effort to understand. I talked about it at length with Saucepan. Then I took him for a few steps along the bank. Staring at the shimmer of the water and listening to his soft voice, I understood the answer, of a disarming simplicity. I didn't have to suffer much longer. My elimination was imminent.
All the pumping's nearly over for my sweetheart. This is the one for me. Time to meet the chef. Oh boy, the running man is out of this. Pico, the note is getting hard to catch my breath. Spark to ash. Now you've had your flesh, boy. The rocks in time compress your blood to oil your flesh to cool. Enrich the soil. Not everybody's gold.
Blackout.
I just drank 3 bottles of the best excuse on the planet. Going back to Camberwell to sign on land and shoplift. Lost my dog after I smoked something I knew I shouldn't have. Days that follow me, and I was following the day.
It was 9 o'clock on a Saturday evening in November. It had been raining continuously for several hours, with an unusual intensity, and something in the weather conditions didn't bode well. There was a strange storm going on, absolutely out of season. Gusts of wind whipped the walls of my villa and made the branches of the trees in the park whistle. The sky had turned black as usually happens in late August. There was thunder and lightning from a summer storm. But it was November 5th to be exact. Something was definitely not going right. Only later did I learn that these were the prodromes of the terrible flood that in a few hours would bring the provinces of Alessandria, Asti, Turin and Cuneo to their knees. The Po was about to overflow. My parents and my brother had all three gone out to a gala evening at the Rotary. My mother very elegant as always in a long Prada dress and a mink coat, leaving behind a refined trail of lily of the valley perfume. Not exactly the right night to hang out, but the meeting was in the hills, in a historic villa in the neighborhood, far from possible flooding, and an important guest was present, a world-famous heart surgeon whom my parents judged unmissable. Antonia, not inclined to that kind of meeting, had declined Michael's invitation and stayed to keep me company while I studied Aeschylus for the Greek exam the following week. Around 8 o'clock she had set the table in the kitchen, and we had eaten the dinner left warm by Teresa, who was away on her evening off. I hoped for her sake that her mysterious companion had taken her to safety. Poor Teresa. When she had learned of Saucepan's death, she had hugged me very tightly crying, aware of my pain, and had tried to console me with a spicy delicacy, arguing that allspice lifts morale. I had obeyed, but was baffled by that strange taste somewhere between pepper, ginger, and clove. Rather, it was her maternal presence that cheered me up. After dinner Antonia had cleared the table, we had washed the dishes together, and she had begun to revise the notes for a lecture she was supposed to give on Monday morning, while I sitting on the sofa opposite in the living room underlined in the textbook the sentences that seemed more significant to me. There were no illusions between us, just a mutual desire to be together again, or so it seemed to me. After my dog's death she had become very kind to me, realizing that I needed sweetness, and I was deeply grateful for that. I think the Coeffrey are the most beautiful tragedy I have ever read, together with Hamlet, I said suddenly, more to myself than to her.
You are right. Among other things, the juxtaposition is very appropriate because the character of Hamlet was modeled precisely on the precedent of the Aeschylean Orestes, full of doubts and uncertainties.
And Simba, the son of the Lion King, too, don't you think?
Yes, I think so.
The Lion King was good. I loved it.
Yes, it was beautiful.
That incredible scene in which Orestes discovers that his mother doesn't care about his death. And then the ending, when he appears on the proscenium, begins his monologue and loses the thread, then picks it up again, sees the Furies, jumps off the stage screaming and runs away without being able to finish the speech. I think Aeschylus in that scene has touched one of the pinnacles of world poetry.
I'm glad you think so. I too have always considered it a stroke of genius.
This courteous, formal tone between us was completely new. It made me a little uneasy, but it was inevitable, given the circumstances, and I gladly accepted it. I started studying again. It had just been a fortnight since my dog's death, and I felt completely down, but being close to her, even simply sharing those literary emotions, gave me a sense of warmth and well-being. Suddenly there was a thunderous roar. Lightning must have struck in the immediate vicinity. We both jumped, then suddenly it was dark. The power's gone out, I said.
Lightning must have struck a pylon,
she hypothesized.
This means that the electric gate is blocked. I won't be able to go home for who knows how long.
Maybe the power will come back soon. I tried to minimize, hoping in my heart that it wouldn't come back at all.
I don't think so. The weather is really scary tonight,
she replied, and was silent, looking out the window. Sudden glares like gigantic flashlights illuminated the garden as day, snapping snapshots of the skeletons of trees whipped by the wind. Meanwhile, roaring thunders, interspersed with the dull background rumble of the upset sky, followed one another without stopping. The shutters flapped in the wind with violent whip cracks. She got up and ran to close all the ones on the ground floor, telling me to do the same thing upstairs. I obeyed. When I went down to the living room, it was pitch dark. You could only see flashes of light filtering through the cracks of the closed shutters. She sat back in her place. I did the same.
Did you close them well?
She asked me. Yes, I replied. And we didn't talk anymore. That situation seemed made to unmask the fiction. The embarrassment was palpable. The electric charge that was passing through the air was being transmitted to us. We were alone, with no hope of seeing the light again for who knows how long. Alone and in the dark. I closed the book, now useless. I thought I could break the silence with some generic comment, strike up a conversation about the weather anomaly, but I didn't. Not even she tried to fill that void with circumstantial banality. She remained silently staring at her notebook. We could have looked for candles, a flashlight, but we didn't. Thus, in that silent and unreal immobility, at least 20 minutes passed, in which I felt my heart beating with ever slower and deeper beats, as if it wanted to stop for fear of disturbing the silence and what I perceived in it. In the dark, I saw her profile light up as day with every flash that filtered through the shutters. I always saw her still in the same position, absorbed in contemplation of the cover of her notebook. She didn't look for excuses to speak. She remained silent. It seemed to me that that silence could only be interpreted in one way, but I didn't dare believe it. Then the lightning almost ceased. Only the howling of the wind remained, the violent patter of the rain, she invisible in front of me. Now mine was no longer a sensation, but a certainty. My heart began to beat again with an almost painful intensity. I leaned my neck against the back of the sofa and waited. I promised myself that I wouldn't move a single muscle in my body. I wouldn't do anything at all. Everything should have happened by itself. My eyes in the dark must have glowed like the pupils of certain wild animals. I was sure she saw them glow in the dark. After a time that to me seemed endless, Antonia got up without saying a word and sat down next to me. I don't know if she expected any reaction from me, but I didn't do anything. She placed her mouth on mine and kissed me silently. I returned her kiss with the chastity of a nun schoolgirl. I felt her hand slip into my pants, finding me obviously desperately aroused, in grotesque contrast to my virginal kiss. I guess she expected me to unbutton my pants, but I didn't. She was the one who had to do everything, or do nothing. I was willing to accept anything. Mine was an unconditional surrender, the offering of a sacrificial victim. She could do with me what she wanted, as in the early days. But even more than in the early days, my role was less than zero, totally passive. I closed my eyes and let her do it in absolute abandon, without commenting, without sighing, without moaning, trying not to break with any sound the spell of that moment that I had believed to be unrepeatable. In those minutes, I was able to measure the abyss that separated the sensations I felt with her from those I had felt with any other girl, bitterly realizing that it would have been the same with no one else. No, never again. As I came, I felt a brutal and violent pleasure, as always with her, and at the same time an unspeakable, excruciating, acute pain, which made me moan more like the agony of a dying man than the sigh of a lover. Without even realizing it, my face was flooded with tears. They flowed without restraint. I could not hold them back in any way. My chest contracted in convulsive sobs. I felt completely desperate. She wasn't surprised. It was as if she had foreseen it, perhaps even wanted it. I suspected that hers had even been a maneuver between the pedagogical and the therapeutic. She stroked my hair for a few minutes, keeping my head resting on her chest and cradling me lightly. Then she said,
Do you see, Emmanuel? We can't do it anymore. It hurts you too much.
I shook my head. That's not what hurts me. It's everything else, everything. It's all bad for me.
I know,
she replied softly. Antonia, I said, trying to suppress my sobs, I can no longer feel pleasure without feeling terribly guilty. I feel like I don't deserve it. I feel like I should be dead. How do I live like this? How can I do? She hugged me.
You are not to blame, Emmanuel. You have done everything possible for your dog and made him happy. You have to resign yourself to the fact that we are not the ones who decide the games, but someone higher up. We don't know who he is or why this happens. We can't judge him. But we are not the culprits. It is not you who wanted this evil.
I was unable to answer. A knot was strangling me. I wanted to tell her that I didn't give a damn if I hadn't wanted to, because I had done it anyway, as had happened with my grandfather, and that made it doubly incomprehensible to me. But I feared she would reply that this was subject for a tragedy by Sophocles, and I had no desire to talk about literature in a moment of such deep and utter despair. When I was able to speak, I said to her, It's not you who hurt me, Antonia. Indeed, you make my life a little more bearable. Thank you for being there. She hugged me again and replied,
I'm happy if I can comfort you, Emmanuel. But what has just happened should make you understand that this is not your path. Sex with me hurts you. It brings back moods that you have to forget now, for your own good.
What is it that I should forget for my own good?
What made you feel good in the past and now makes you suffer?
You mean my adolescence?
Not your adolescence. You're still very young. Let's say that phase of your life.
I smiled bitterly. I was a kind of Adam in Eden before the original sin. Now innocence is lost. It's all lost.
Not all is lost, Emmanuel. Only that small part of your existence is lost, but you have the whole life to live. You will have other experiences. You will like many. You have to look ahead. With me, you can only look back and the past hurts you. You have to go other ways.
What other ways?
The ones that life will put in front of you from time to time. Right now, you just have to take one step after another with holy patience, without being in a hurry, until you find your way.
I thought I'd already found my way.
It's not like that, and what just happened proved it to you.
I felt a little irritated. But what did it prove to me? I don't know how to tell you anymore, Antonia. You're not the problem. It's me who can no longer experience sex without being devastated by remorse. It's not that with another girl or another man it would be different.
But I think so. Anyway, you have to try for your own good.
For my fucking good.
I only want your good, do you understand?
No, I don't understand at all. I just told you that your presence is the only thing that comforts me. But obviously you're not listening. Your presence, not sex. I didn't ask you for sex.
You are right, sorry.
You don't have to apologize. It was very nice. It's me that just can't take it anymore. It makes me sick. And if it's sex that hurts me, I'd rather give up sex than you.
You don't have to give up on me. I will always be by your side like an older sister.
I don't need older sisters. I already have a brother.
As a friend, if you prefer.
I love you, Antonia. I do not need sex to love you. These words exploded from my mouth like the cork of a champagne bottle. They hit her in the stomach. I felt her diaphragm contract. I had been imprudent, but the truth had to be told. She remained silent for a while, not knowing what to reply.
I believe.
She began, but broke off. She didn't know what she believed. The wind howled loudly among the pines in the park, bent them almost to the ground, like taut arches. I didn't give her time to pick up the thread of the conversation. Tell me you love me too. Tell me. Because it's the truth, you know. She kept silent. Tell me, I repeated. At that moment, the light came on again. We looked at each other as if waking up from a dream. She blushed a little, moved away from me, straightened my trousers and tucked my sweater back in place with motherly gestures.
You feel better?
She asked me affectionately. No, I replied in a hostile tone.
You need to go to sleep. A good night's sleep will put you back on track.
Such banality, uttered at that moment, could have only one meaning. Antonia couldn't wait to distance herself from me and from what had just happened. I almost looked at her with hatred. She pretended not to notice, gathered her things, kissed me on the forehead, left the house, diving into the storm without hesitation, and ran to her small car. A few minutes later, I saw her come out of the gate of the villa. A devastating despondency assailed me, an indescribable sense of loneliness. I had the confirmation that only the old way was able to give me comfort, but I had been told that I had to go other ways. I had to go like a wandering beggar, at random. I had to go without knowing where, like a dog abandoned by its master in the open countryside. It wasn't I who wanted to leave. It was Antonia who wanted to get rid of me. I was a danger, a threat, a useless nuisance. Her attraction to me, of which I had just had the most tangible evidence, hindered her life. I realized that it had been a terrible mistake to unmask her, to hold the truth in her face, to tell her that she too loved me. From now on she would only offer me a lukewarm friendship. Or maybe, if she didn't succeed, not even that. And maybe actually, I thought bitterly, Antonia didn't love me. She felt an irresistible attraction for me. But love was something else. Yes, I would have been able to stay close to her without sex, dominating my instincts in the name of something higher. But no, she couldn't do it. There wasn't this something higher in her. She was too material a creature, and what's worse, she didn't realize she was. Or maybe, who knows, my desire for her wasn't as intense as what she had for me. My head was exhausted, confused. I stopped thinking, because I no longer understood anything. I felt that I no longer had any point of reference. Whatever Antonia really was, she had been a teacher, mother, friend, lover for me. I had lost my crazy compass which pointed to any north. I felt that without it I was lost. I no longer even had my best friend, my dog. I was alone, completely alone. Mine was pure terror, animal terror, Bambi's terror when he loses his mother in the forest fire. I went to bed dazed, staggering, with the giddy feeling of a drunk, mechanically carrying the coffre with me. The howl of the wind and the downpours of rain was deafening. I had the impression that it was about to hail. I put my head under the pillow, irrationally clutching the book in my hands, as if Aeschylus could protect me on that stormy night. I felt that I too wanted to jump off the stage, like Orestes. I felt that maybe that was the solution, to drown the pain in madness.
Neighbors said that we were dead. We only slept 1 hour a night. Working jobs that we both hate to buy some on shit we don't need. Dog meat stew from Mexicans who dig in trash cans for breakfast. Burglar alarms are disconnected when they want insurance. It's all you, it's all you, it's all you are. It's all you, it's all you, it's all you are. I knew her before the thing, I never knew her after. Don't like too much noise, and I don't really like the weather. Changed my name to John Coltrane, cause no one took my phone calls. Best times are always the ones that you just walked away from.